Florida State is winning at least 10 games with the schedule that they have. That's Brian Smith, our Locked On Recruiting Insider, also the host of Locked On Seminoles, joining me here on today's show. I don't love Florida State as a national title contender. I am not a DJ Uiagalelei fan. I do know that DJ can win football games. He led Oregon State to an 8-4 season last year. He won other games whilst at Clemson. I think this FSU roster around him is kind of similar compared to the rest of the league with what they had in Corvallis a season ago, in that he doesn't need to be the driving force. He's just kind of a complimentary guy. He's still just, solid, decent, fine at this point. But when I look at Florida State's roster, I am inclined down in my gut to see a pullback from a 13-0 regular season and ACC championship game. But then I look at the schedule and I go, well, they've got a better roster than that team, that team, that team, that team, that. And you just kind of keep doing that down the list. That's why I feel like they're a lock to win at least 10 games this year, Brian.
I think 9-3 would have to include a couple of major injuries. I'm pretty much right there with you. I know that some of the sports books feel a little differently, but that's part of its betting. They had 10 guys, if I remember, either drafted or at the NFL Combine, so that people automatically look at that and just they stop researching. Bad decision. Florida State loaded up in the portal. They hit it hard. Kids from Bama, kids from Georgia, and they got DJ as well. It's going to be an experienced team that has like 8 starters capable on the O-line. I mean, there's a lot to like. So, and the defense, they don't have a weakness other than a little bit of linebacker depth problem. I agree. I think 10-2 is kind of mild. And I don't dislike the schedule either. There's no NC State. There's no Louisville. That matters. Like, even if you were going to win, it's less attrition to play them. In Florida, by the time they play Florida, no offense, I don't expect Billy Napier to be the head coach. So that's in Tallahassee, by the way. So good luck to the rest of the ACC. I know they got Notre Dame and Miami on the road, but I think they'll split that, and I don't think they'll lose in another game. I really don't.
Yeah, I look at the schedule. It works out really well. Now, they play the first real college football game of the year, and it's going to be interesting because Florida State's going to have the chance to showcase what they can be this year, how legit of an ACC and playoff contender they are in 2024 under Mike Norvell, because Georgia Tech is not a team that is to be trifled with. Now, Florida State's a pretty sizable favorite, but I would not go into that game and think, oh, Florida State's going to cruise. They can have their B game and win easily. Like, this game is being played in Ireland. It is just 16 days away from the day that this show is airing. I think they're winning that game and their next 2 non-conference games, which are at home against Boston College and Memphis. Though, can't mess around with Memphis either. But I think this is a 3-0 start, and I expect Florida State to just kind of out-roster each of those 3 opponents.
That's where I'm at. The only thing there, Seth Hennigan from Memphis is really good, but they've lost, I think, if I remember right, 4 out of their 5 O-line. Meet Florida State's front. Good luck with that. They've got a few NFL guys, including Darrell Jackson, 6'6", 330. Memphis doesn't have something for that, I'm going to guess. They also have possibly the best pass rusher in the league in Patrick Payton. Losing 4 O-linemen is not good for that. I think that you're right. I also think you could look at those 3, especially remember BC almost upset Florida State last year.
Very true. But that was at Boston College. But Jordan Travis was playing in the game. There's been some change. You have a returning quarterback. Right. You got Bill O'Brien there, who I think can be a good head coach. I don't know if BC's got the horses to go into Tallahassee and win this football game.
I don't see that. But that's the whole point. If they get past that, and then you got Cal at home, first true road test is at SMU, maybe. But then you got Clemson at home, at Duke, at Miami. Like, there's nobody you go, The only game that really gives me a lot of pause is Notre Dame because it's in November up there. Florida teams in November in the North I don't like. But Notre Dame has lost their left tackle for the season too. So there may not be a game Florida State is not favored this year. That is something to look at. Miami game's iffy, but we'll see.
I think the left tackle news at Notre Dame is significant. I don't think that's going to move the line. And at home, I'd expect the Irish are still favored. And I do have that as the only Sharpian loss on my prediction here for Florida State's schedule. Because you're right, they've got the 3 straight home games, Boston College, Memphis, Cal. I think Cal's actually a solid team in the ACC this year. They're top 20 in returning production. They were a bowl team a season ago. Returning quarterback. They've got a couple question marks at receiver and whether their defense can rebound. But Could they scare Florida State for a quarter? Yeah, but can they match up for 4 quarters? No, I don't think their offensive line is going to, be able to perform at that sort of level. But I have them winning at SMU and then at home against Clemson before a win at Duke, and then we'll get to the interesting games here. But the Clemson game, that's going to be tough, but at home, I'll take FSU in that spot. It was a thrilling game in Clemson a year ago. But that SMU game, Brian, is another one that kind of like Georgia Tech. I'm picking Florida State to win. I expect them to win. They should win. They'll be favored to do so, maybe even by a sizable amount. It's not a game where you can just show up, roll out of bed, and ho-hum, we're just going to go play a team and win. Like SMU on the road, that's going to be their first real opportunity to prove to the rest of the conference, which they are brand new to this season, that, hey, we are here, we're legit, and this program is going to be a conference title contender every year once FSU and Clemson leave.
I think that's a fair statement. They got the boosters to do it too. There's a lot of money at that school. But do they have the offensive lineman to block Florida State again? Except for Notre Dame in Miami, and Notre Dame again is iffy. Losing Charles Jagusah is a really big deal because tackle was their weakest spot. There isn't a team on the schedule that I think, except for maybe Clemson, that can compete with Florida State's defensive front. I think they were going to engulf at least 8, if not 9, of their opponents. And they're just going to be running the ball into 2nd and 8 situations. That doesn't work at any level. So you're right. The SMU game's interesting, but I still think Knowles by 10 or more.
The North Carolina game at home, I have as a win. Notre Dame, I've got a loss, and then 2 wins to end the year against Charleston Southern and Florida. Both those games are at home. I disagree that Billy Napier will be done after this year. I think the schedule's too brutal, and as long as he wins at least 4, maybe he needs to win 5 games, which he could do, then he'll be okay. Are they going to beat Florida State? No, I don't think so. But the games that'll define Florida State's season in more ways than one, whether you're talking about ACC title hopes or even at large college football playoff berths, because I have them at 11-1 or 10-2, with my toss-up game here being at Miami in Coral Gables. I'd feel differently if it were in Tallahassee, but I think Miami's going to be a good team this year. They could absolutely win that football game. Feels like a go-either-way battle, and I like Cam Ward more than I like DJ Uiagalelei. But if Florida State goes 11-1, let's say, and they're in the ACC title game, and they're playing, I don't know, just hypothetically, like a 9-3 upstart Virginia Tech team, and Virginia Tech finds a way to knock them off, or somebody else finds a way to knock them off in the ACC title game, suddenly going 11-1 will be their saving grace to get into the playoff. Because I think 11-2 will get in. Yeah, I think 11-2 gets in, but 10-3 in the ACC, Brian.
If you don't win that title game, is very iffy at best.
Exactly. That's exactly, because I think even you could have SEC or Big Ten teams, if they're in there at 10-2.
The schedule is valued differently.
It is, and you probably can't get a 2 or 3 loss team into that, or a 2 loss game into that Big Ten or SEC championship game. But in the ACC, you absolutely could, and I think it is rather important, unless everything is going to come down to that conference championship game for FSU to get into the playoff this year with a 12-team format. They've got to be 11-1, and it could very well come down to the game that I have down as a toss-up, and that is at Miami.
Who knows what's going to happen with Mario Cristobal? He is the enigma that keeps on giving in big games until otherwise proven.
Well, it's not as if he hasn't won. It goes both ways. Sometimes his team's laying eggs. Sometimes his team's...
Look at the Clemson game last year. They started a true freshman quarterback and beat Clemson's defense. It's the worst team on earth. If you're going to gamble, don't gamble on Miami.
Here's the interesting thing, because you've mentioned several times that Florida State's defensive line might be the best in the ACC. They can just engulf their opponents. You know who's going to have the horses up front to deal with that sort of defensive line? Miami. This is Mario Cristobal and Alex Mirabal's 3rd year. You look at the way they've recruited, the guys they're going to have up front. That should be among the best offensive lines, and why, if Miami does win that game, I think FanDuel has that as a point spread of less than 2 right now. It should be one of the best games of the year in the ACC, and could very well, barring a conference championship for a 2nd straight season, ultimately define whether Florida State gets into the playoff.
You said it. That game should come down to the end, though. Who do you like better, Norvell or Cristobal?
Norvell.
Yeah. Do you think anybody?
But okay. But allow me to counter. I've got the home team on the other side, and who do I like better, DJU or Cam Ward? I'll take Cam.
Cam had 14 fumbles last year. That is still my concern.
That has to be cleaned up. There's no doubt about it. But he's going to go play behind the best offensive line he's ever had in college football.
Oh,
Wazoo gave him receiving cores and good offensive coordinators, but gosh almighty, they couldn't develop an offensive line. Could not do it.
Yeah, I watched some of their O-line last year. That's a jailbreak.
Not good. Yeah, it was not good. But he still has had fumble and turnover issues in his career. So I've got Florida State 11-1 or 10-2, pending the outcome of that Miami game. You have them same boat, 11-1, 10-2. Exactly the same. Great minds think alike. Brian Smith, Locked On Seminoles, also our Locked On Recruiting Insider here at the network. Brian, appreciate the time.
Thanks, sir.
Appreciate everyone listening. I will see you next time. And until then, hope you have a wonderful rest of your day.